This topic that we're going to be looking at is all related to investing and borrowing. So I guess there's real life application to this. If people are going to be taking out loans at some stage, maybe not in the really near future, but at least within the next 5 to 10 years, I'm sure that at least some of you will take out a loan, whether that be on a car or whether that be on a house, or maybe you decide to start a business and you don't have the money, so you need to borrow some money. Yep.
This is a bit off track, but how do matches have to do with milk?
Now, when someone lends money, so like a bank, if they lend you money, they don't want to do it for free. They want to get something from it. Why? Because if they are giving you their money, they've got some risk involved. They take the risk of you not being able to pay it back. So obviously, if anyone's ever been to or heard their parents talk about getting a loan, they talk about the fact that sometimes some people get approved for a loan, other people don't. So the banks will look at, one, do you have some income coming in that you're actually going to be able to pay off this loan? And if they think that you're a bit of a risky candidate and you're not going to be able to pay off the loan, what's something that a bank might do? Decline. They might decline, or there's one other thing that they'll allow you to do. Yeah, but just say that they're not 100% sure if you're going to be able to pay it back.
Then they don't give it to you.
All right, but there's one thing that they might allow you to do. So maybe your parents are willing to put their house up for like collateral. So just say that the bank says, well, I'm not 100% sure if you're going to be able to pay off this loan, but if you really want it, we'll give you the loan, but if you can't pay off the loan, then we take property of the house, we'll sell the house, and then we'll take the money that you owe us, and then you get the rest of the money. So you can put up certain assets as a security, just in case. But generally, if people have some income and they have some deposit, then they'll be able to get a loan. Now it's a lot harder to get loans, just because you would have seen stuff in the news about people, especially in America, like the GFC. I mean, I'm not an economist, but it basically came down to banks giving out lots of loans to people who couldn't pay them off, and then there was all this money that wasn't paid off, and therefore there was the economic downturn. So when there's money being lent, there's two people involved. There's the lender, so the lender's like the bank, the person who's giving out the loan. Now, if you go to a bank and you get declined, you might have heard of like a loan shark. So a loan shark is someone who they'll take on more risk. So they might say, okay, you've been declined from the bank for this loan, but we'll give you the money, but we're going to charge a higher interest rate. So that means that eventually you're going to have to give them more money than what you'd have to give the bank. So we'll just do a couple terms. So like I said, there's two people involved. There's the lender. So that's the person or company lending the money. So that's the bank or whoever you want to give you some money. And then obviously the person borrowing the money is the other party. So that's the borrower. Now, like we were just saying, the bank isn't just going to lend people money and get nothing for it. So they charge you some fee. So the fee that they charge is the interest. So if you've ever heard the term interest, it's pretty much a fee for borrowing money from people.
Is this going to be a test?
Not this test, but the next one.
Isn't that DI?
I'll have to talk to the other teachers.
So this is like a new topic.
Yeah, I think this one will be a DI. So the lender charges a fee called interest to the borrower. So the person who borrows the money, they need to pay back the amount that they borrowed plus the interest on top. So just say that I go and buy a car. It might cost $30,000. I don't have that money, so I go to the bank and say, can I borrow $10,000? Because I might have $20,000 saved and then I need another 10. They'll say, sure, we'll give you $10,000, but you're going to have to pay this percentage interest on top. So over whatever term the loan might be, I might end up having to pay them about $15,000 from the $10,000 loan. So the borrower must pay back the, now principal means the amount borrowed, so the principal amount plus any interest. Alright, so principal just means the amount borrowed. I might just make a note of that. So we're going to look at two types of interest. There's simple interest and compounding interest. So the first chapter is all to do with simple interest. I won't talk about compounding interest for now, but we'll see the power of compound in coming lessons. Alright, so simple interest, basically this is working out. I go to the bank, I say I want $10,000. This is how we work out how much on top of that $10,000 I'm going to owe them. So to work out the interest, you go the principal. Now remember, the principal is the amount you've borrowed times the interest rate. So maybe at the moment, I think for home loans, the interest rate's about 2%. So if you borrow a house worth $100,000, then the interest per year will be $2,000 on top of that. And then, so that they're really low. Back in, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, interest rates were like 18%, I think, for houses. Times N, and N is the time of the loan. So I'll say what these things are, where P is the principal. So remember, principal means the amount borrowed. I is the interest rate. And N is the time. Now the time in this formula has to be given in years. So if they told you that the loan was in 24 months, you'd have to say, you'd be substituting 2 in for N. It's always in years. And we're going to do an example of working out some interest in a second. So now this formula can be rearranged to get P, I, and N by themselves. So depending on what the question gives you, sometimes they might tell you what the amount of interest paid is. They might give you the interest rate and the number of years, and they want you to work out the principal. So I'm just going to write the 3 rearrangements. So this formula can be rearranged so if you want it, so that's to determine the interest rate, if you know those things. If you want to determine the principal, so P, so all I'm doing is rearranging this formula, equals I over, so again, for people who are decent at algebra, you'd know to get this I and n to the other side of the equation, you'd divide it and it would be at the bottom. So it's I times n. So this is saying if I know how much interest was paid, I know an interest rate, and I know the number of years that the loan is being paid off in, then I can work out what the original amount loaned was. If I want to work out an interest rate, given that other information, the interest rate is equal to I over P times N, and then the last one is time. N is equal to I over P times I, and note that the N is time in years. So this first bit of this booklet just goes over exactly what I spoke about. They've got the formulas that we just noted. So there's the first one and there's the three rearrangements. I'm just going to go through the examples they've got on this sheet so you can go through it as we do it. So first one, find the simple interest paid on a loan of $20,000 for 5 years at 6% per annum. Alright, so this is saying I've borrowed $20,000. I've agreed with the bank that I'm going to pay it off within 5 years. And they're saying, okay, but each year you have to pay us 6% of that principal amount. So that's what per annum means, the PA, per year. So to work out how much interest is going to be paid over that time, the principal is the amount borrowed, which is $20,000, times the interest rate. Now, you have to be careful here. They've given us the interest rate as a percentage. We have to write it as a decimal. All right, so to write 6% as a decimal, do we remember how to convert a percentage to a decimal? You divide it by 100, so that's going to be 0.06 times, now n is the time period in years, so our time period is 5 years, so we multiply by 5. So you'll get 6,000. So what does that $6,000 mean? It means over 5 years, I've borrowed $20,000, and the bank said to me, well, in return for that, over the 5 years, you're going to end up paying us $6,000 on top of it. So what does the part B says, what's the total cost of the loan? It's the amount that I borrowed, which was $20,000, plus the interest that I have to pay, which is $6,000. So I end up giving the bank $26,000 in return. So I've given them about $1,000 per year. A bit more than $1,000 per year for borrowing their money. So I guess if you've got a business, the risky thing for businesses is they've got to pay off these loans. If they're not making any money, the interest keeps accruing. So the amount that they owe becomes more and more and more. And eventually it might, especially if it's compounding, the amounts get so large that it becomes difficult to pay off. So the company might go bankrupt. So they want to know what the monthly repayment will be. So if the loan is paid back in equal repayments of monthly installments over the 5-year period, calculate the size. So what that's saying is they don't just pay off the $6,000 in one go. They're going to pay it off each month. So basically we're going to, so the total amount that's eventually going to have to be paid back is the principal plus the interest, which we did there. So we're going to have to give them $26,000. Now, I'm not going to be able to give that to the bank all in one go. I'm going to pay them off over 5 years. Now, they want to know how many monthly repayments there are. So we need to know how many months there are in 5 years. There's 60. So I'll just make note, that's number of months in 5 years, because they wanted monthly repayments. If they wanted weekly installments, then you'd have to work out how many weeks there are in 5 years, and you divide it by that many weeks. So like Marco said, it's going to be $433.33. So every month for the next 5 years, that's how much money you have to pay the bank to pay off that $20,000 that they just gave you. So yes, I can buy my car for $20,000 tomorrow, even though I don't have any money, but every month I need to keep paying that for 5 years. Alright, we'll do one example together. So Jenny deposits $10,000 in an investment that earns 5% per annum. So when people invest, it's kind of the opposite. So rather than you having to pay the bank, maybe I buy shares in Telstra, and Telstra basically pay me a percentage of their profit. So I might get a, 9% return on my investment here. This person's invested $10,000 in an account and they get 5% back. I mean, you guys probably have savings accounts and the interest rates are really, really low. You might get like less than 1% interest, but you would see each month that the bank gives you a little bit of money. So how much interest has that account earned after 2 years? So if you want to work out how much interest has occurred, again, always write down the formula you're using. I, which is interest, is equal to the principal times the interest rate times the term of the investment, and it has to be in years. So we know that the principal is $10,000. So Jenny's put $10,000 in whatever investment it might be. They've told her that she's going to get 5% back. Remember, you don't write 5% as a percentage. You have to convert it to a decimal. So it's going to be 0.05. And she's going to keep it in that investment for 2 years. So something like a term deposit, if anyone's ever heard of that, it's kind of like a savings account, but you put your money into the term deposit and you can't take it out for that many years or however long the term is. If you take your money out, what the bank does is they say, okay, well, we're not going to give you the interest because you took out the money. So the time period was 2 years. So the interest should come out as $1,000. So from that $10,000 investment over 2 years, she got $1,000 back. She got $500 per year. So what is the total balance of her account at the end of the period? She's got her initial amount plus the interest that she made. So the balance is equal to the initial $10,000 plus the $1,000 she made. So she gets $11,000. So in this question here, I'm not going to do this. This one you guys are going to do. But Bob borrows $5,000 for a flat rate of 4.5% per annum for 42 months. So when you're putting in your values to work out the interest, remember, 1, convert the 4.5% to a decimal. So you just divide that amount by 100, so it'll be 0.045. And you don't want the time period in months. What do we want it in? Years. So if you divide that value by 12, that will tell you how many years it is. Alright, so I'll leave the video there.